Right now, as you sit there, your mind is having a conversation. It's talking to you constantly, creating your reality word by word, thought by thought. Most people never realize they're having the most important conversation of their lives every single moment they're awake. The question is simple. Are you listening to what you're telling yourself? And more importantly, are you in control of that conversation? What if I told you that the difference between people who manifest their dreams quickly and those who struggle for years isn't talent, luck, or circumstances? What if the only difference is the quality of their internal dialogue? The successful ones have learned to speak to themselves like a trusted mentor, while the struggling ones beat themselves up like their worst enemy. Raise your hand if you've ever caught yourself saying, I can't do this, or this always happens to me, or I'm not good enough. Keep your hand up if you said it more than once today. Look around. Most hands should be up, because most people have trained themselves to be their own biggest obstacle. Here's what I know after studying thousands of people who transformed their lives. The moment they changed what they said to themselves, everything else began to change. Not someday, not eventually, immediately. Let me share a story that changed how I think about the power we hold in our own minds. There was a man who worked the same job for 15 years. Every morning he'd look in the mirror and say, another day, another dollar, same old routine. He complained to his wife, his friends, anyone who would listen about being stuck, about how life was unfair, about how success was for other people. One Tuesday morning, something shifted. Maybe he was tired of the same complaints. Instead of his usual morning routine of self-pity, he looked in the mirror and said something different. Today I choose to see opportunities I've been blind to. Simple words. Nothing fancy. But something inside him shifted. That same day, he noticed a conversation between two colleagues about a project that needed leadership. The old version of himself would have thought, they'll never pick me. Instead, he walked over and said, I'd like to lead that project. Within 6 months, he was promoted. Within 2 years, he started his own company. Within 5 years, he was financially free. What changed? His circumstances were identical. His skills were the same. His opportunities were always there. The only thing that changed was the conversation he had with himself. He stopped being his own prosecutor and became his own advocate. Now, before you think this is just positive thinking nonsense, understand this, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what you tell it and what's actually happening. It simply accepts what you consistently feed it and works to make that your reality. When you constantly tell yourself you're stuck, your subconscious finds ways to keep you stuck. When you tell yourself you're capable of growth, it finds ways to help you grow. The human mind processes over 60,000 thoughts per day. Most people let those thoughts run wild, like letting a 2-year-old drive a car. They wonder why their life feels out of control while their internal dialogue sounds like a disaster report. Things never work out for me. I always mess up. Good things happen to other people, not me. Your internal dialogue is either your greatest asset or your biggest liability. There's no middle ground. Every word you speak to yourself is either building your future or destroying it. Every internal conversation is either moving you toward what you want or away from it. Think about a farmer for a moment. He doesn't plant corn and expect tomatoes. He doesn't plant weeds and expect a beautiful garden. He plants exactly what he wants to harvest. Your thoughts work the same way. Plant thoughts of limitation, harvest a limited life. Plant thoughts of possibility, harvest opportunities. Plant thoughts of failure, and failure becomes your familiar companion. The most successful people I know have learned to speak to themselves the way they would speak to someone they deeply respect and believe in. They've learned to be their own best coach, their own biggest supporter, their own wisest counselor. They understand that the relationship they have with themselves sets the tone for every other relationship and opportunity in their life. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think changing their self-talk means lying to themselves or pretending everything is perfect. That's not what this is about. This is about taking responsibility for the conversation that's already happening and making it work for you instead of against you. When you catch yourself saying, I'll never be able to afford that, you replace it with, I'm learning how to create multiple income streams. When you hear yourself think, I'm terrible at this, you shift to, I'm developing this skill. When the says nothing ever works out, you respond with, I'm becoming someone who creates solutions. The difference isn't just semantic. The difference is that one conversation closes possibilities while the other opens them. One conversation tells your subconscious to look for problems while the other tells it to look for solutions. One conversation makes you a victim of circumstances while the other makes you a creator of circumstances. Here's what happens when you take control of your internal dialogue. Opportunities that were always there suddenly become visible. Solutions that were always available suddenly seem obvious. Resources that were always within reach suddenly appear accessible. Your circumstances don't change overnight, but your ability to work with your circumstances transforms immediately. Most people are having conversations with themselves that they wouldn't tolerate from their worst enemy. They're more critical of themselves than anyone else would dare to be. They speak to themselves with a harshness they would never use with a friend in need. They've become addicted to their own negative self-talk, and like any addiction, it's destroying their potential from the inside out. But addiction can be broken. Patterns can be changed. The conversation that's been limiting you can become the conversation that liberates you. The that's been your critic can become your champion. The internal dialogue that's been keeping you small can become the force that helps you expand. This isn't about pretending you don't have challenges. This isn't about ignoring reality or living in fantasy. This is about changing your relationship with reality. This is about becoming someone who talks to challenges like they're puzzles to solve rather than walls that can't be climbed. This is about becoming someone who speaks to setbacks like they're setups for comebacks. The conversation you're having with yourself right now is creating your tomorrow. The words you're speaking to yourself in this moment are programming your next actions, your next decisions, your next results. If you want different results, you need a different conversation. Are you ready to fire your inner critic and hire your inner champion? Are you ready to stop being your own worst enemy and start being your own best friend? Are you ready to change the conversation that's been running your life and start running the conversation that will create your life? The power to manifest 10 times faster isn't in some secret technique or hidden knowledge. It's in learning to speak to yourself like your success matters, like your dreams are possible, like you're worth the effort it takes to achieve them. It's in understanding that every word you speak to yourself is either an investment in your future or a withdrawal from your potential. Your internal dialogue right now is either your springboard to success or your anchor to mediocrity. The choice of which one it becomes is yours, and that choice is available to you every moment of every day. What will you choose? What conversation will you have with yourself when you leave here today? What will you tell yourself when you face your next challenge or opportunity? The most powerful force in your life isn't what others think of you or what circumstances surround you. The most powerful force in your life is what you consistently tell yourself about who you are and what's possible for you. Master that conversation, and you master your destiny. Neglect that conversation, and you surrender your power to create the life you want. The conversation starts now, and it starts with you. That conversation you just committed to having with yourself. It doesn't work like a light switch. It works like compound interest. Every positive word you speak to yourself today creates momentum for tomorrow. Every limiting thought you entertain today creates resistance for next week. The results don't show up immediately, but they're building underneath the surface, creating the foundation for everything that's coming. Think about a tree. You don't plant an acorn today and wake up tomorrow with an oak tree in your backyard, but something is happening beneath the ground from day one. Roots are forming. Strength is building. The foundation for greatness is being established, even when you can't see it yet. Your internal dialogue works exactly the same way. Most people give up on changing their self-talk because they don't see immediate results. They speak to themselves with kindness for 3 days, don't see $1 million in their bank account, and conclude it doesn't work. They're looking for microwave results from a slow cooker process. They want instant transformation from what is actually a systematic rebuilding of their mental operating system. Here's what actually happens when you consistently change your internal dialogue. Week 1, you feel a little different. Week 2, you start noticing opportunities you missed before. Week 3, you begin taking actions you previously avoided. Week 4, other people start noticing changes in your energy and confidence. Week 8, you're getting different results. Week 12, your life looks different. Week 24, people ask you what happened to you. Week 52, you can barely remember being the person who started this process. The compound effect of internal dialogue works in seasons, just like nature does. Spring is when you plant new thoughts and start new conversations with yourself. Summer is when you nurture those thoughts with consistency and patience while they grow. Fall is when you begin to harvest the results of your mental farming. Winter is when you rest in the confidence of knowing your new patterns are established and prepare for the next level of growth. Right now, many of you are in winter, wondering why nothing is growing. You've been planting seeds of self-doubt for years, and you're experiencing the harvest of that mental farming. The good news is that seasons change, and you can start planting different seeds anytime you choose. The challenge is that most people are so focused on the current harvest that they never change what they're planting. Show of hands, how many of you have been telling yourself the same limiting story for more than 5 years? Keep them up. How many for more than 10 years? Look around. Those are the people experiencing the compound effect of negative self-talk. They've been incredibly consistent, just in the wrong direction. But consistency works both ways. The same mental laws that have been working against you can start working for you. The same compound effect that created limitation can create expansion. The same repetition that programmed you for struggle can reprogram you for success. You don't need to learn new laws. You need to apply the laws you've already been using in a different direction. Consider a construction worker building a house. He doesn't lay one brick and expect to move in. He doesn't pour the foundation and immediately start hanging pictures. He understands that building something worthwhile takes time, consistency, and patience. Each brick matters. Each beam serves a purpose. Each day of work builds upon the previous day's progress. Your new internal dialogue is construction work. Every positive conversation you have with yourself is laying another brick. Every time you replace a limiting thought with an empowering one, you're installing another beam. Every day you choose to speak to yourself like someone worth believing in, you're building another floor on the structure of your new life. The difference between people who transform their lives and people who stay stuck is simple. The transformers understand that change is a building process, not an event. They know that today's internal dialogue is creating tomorrow's external reality. They're willing to have the same empowering conversation with themselves 1,000 times. Because they understand that repetition is the mother of skill, and consistency is the father of results. But here's where it gets interesting. Life has patterns, and these patterns are predictable. Every person goes through cycles of challenge and opportunity, setback and breakthrough, learning and applying. The people who understand these cycles use their internal dialogue to navigate them wisely. The people who don't understand these cycles get tossed around by them. When you're in a challenging season, your internal dialogue either becomes your anchor or your enemy. If you speak to yourself like challenges are temporary teachers, you learn the lessons quickly and move through them faster. If you speak to yourself like challenges are proof that life is unfair, you stay stuck in them longer and learn less from them. When you're in an opportunity season, your internal dialogue either helps you recognize and seize the chances or causes you to doubt and miss them. If you speak to yourself like someone who deserves good things, you attract and accept opportunities naturally. If you speak to yourself like someone who doesn't deserve success, you sabotage opportunities before they can benefit you. The successful people I know have learned to use their internal dialogue like a GPS system. When they're lost, they don't beat themselves up about taking the wrong turn. They simply recalculate and speak to themselves about the best route from where they are now. When they reach a destination, they don't stop there permanently. They set a new destination and start the internal conversation about how to get there. This is why some people seem to manifest results faster than others. It's not because they have special powers or secret connections. It's because they've trained themselves to have the kind of internal dialogue that accelerates progress instead of creating resistance. They speak to themselves like someone who expects good things to happen, so good things happen more frequently. The average person's internal dialogue creates resistance to their own success. They want to make more money, but they tell themselves money is hard to make. They want better relationships, but they tell themselves good people are hard to find. They want to be healthier, but they tell themselves they don't have time to exercise. They're literally arguing against their own goals with their own thoughts. Smart people use their internal dialogue to create momentum toward their goals. They want more money, so they tell themselves they're learning to create value that others will pay for. They want better relationships, so they tell themselves they're becoming the kind of person others want to be around. They want better health, so they tell themselves they're developing habits that make them feel energetic and strong. Same goals, different internal dialogue, completely different results. One conversation creates friction, the other creates flow. One conversation makes achieving goals feel like pushing a car uphill. The other makes it feel like steering a car downhill. The goals aren't different. The strategies might not even be different. The conversation makes all the difference. Here's something most people never consider. Your internal dialogue doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone around you. The conversation you have with yourself determines the energy you bring to every interaction, every meeting, every relationship, every opportunity. People can feel whether you believe in yourself or doubt yourself, whether you expect good things or brace for bad things, whether you see yourself as someone who adds value or someone who needs help. When you change your internal dialogue, you change the way people respond to you. When you start speaking to yourself like someone who belongs in the room, other people start treating you like you belong in the room. When you start telling yourself you have something valuable to contribute, other people start looking to you for contributions. When you start believing in your own potential, other people start believing in it too. This creates a multiplying effect. Your improved internal dialogue doesn't just change your actions, it changes other people's actions toward you. It doesn't just open your eyes to opportunities, it makes other people want to create opportunities for you. It doesn't just make you feel more confident, it makes other people feel more confident about betting on you. But there's a dangerous side to this compound effect that most people never talk about. Just like positive internal dialogue compounds in your favor, negative internal dialogue compounds against you. The person who consistently tells themselves they're unlucky doesn't just feel unlucky, they start making choices that create unlucky outcomes. The person who always tells themselves things never work out stops putting in the effort that makes things work out. The self-talk becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the prophecy reinforces the self-talk. It's a cycle that either lifts you up or pulls you down, but it never leaves you the same. Neutral doesn't exist when it comes to internal dialogue. You're either building or destroying, creating or limiting, empowering or discouraging yourself with every thought. Most people are completely unconscious of this process. They're experiencing the compound effect of years of negative self-talk and wondering why their life feels hard. They're reaping the harvest of mental seeds they don't even remember planting. They're living in the house their thoughts built, but they don't recognize the architecture. The moment you become conscious of this process is the moment you can start changing it. The moment you realize your internal dialogue has been your invisible partner in creating your current reality is the moment you can make it your conscious partner in creating your new reality. Your thoughts have been compounding for years, creating the momentum that brought you to where you are right now. If you like where you are, keep thinking the same thoughts. If you want to be somewhere else, start thinking different thoughts. Not just today, not just this week, but consistently enough for the compound effect to work in your favor. The question isn't whether the compound effect is real, you're living proof that it's real. The question is whether you're going to let it continue working against you or start making it work for you. The question is whether you're going to remain unconscious of the most powerful force in your life or become the conscious director of that force. Every successful person understands this principle. Small changes in internal dialogue, maintained over time, create massive changes in external results. They know that the conversation they have with themselves today is the foundation for the life they'll be living next year. They know that consistency in small things leads to extraordinary outcomes in big things. This is why changing your internal dialogue isn't a technique or a strategy. It's a lifestyle. It's a commitment to becoming conscious of the most important conversation in your life and taking responsibility for making that conversation serve your highest good. It's about understanding that your thoughts are not just random mental activity. They're the blueprints for your future reality. Understanding how your internal dialogue compounds is worthless unless you know exactly what to do with that knowledge. Theory without application is just entertainment. You need a system. You need specific practices. You need daily disciplines that turn your new understanding into automatic behavior. The most successful people in the world all share one common trait. They have morning routines that program their minds for success before the world has a chance to program their minds for mediocrity. They understand that the first conversation they have with themselves each day sets the tone for every conversation that follows. Here's your morning protocol. Before you check your phone, before you talk to anyone else, before you consume any outside information, you have a conversation with yourself. Not a casual chat, a strategic programming session. You speak to yourself like you're programming a computer that will run your entire day. Start with this simple question. What kind of person do I choose to be today? Not what you hope to accomplish. Not what you want to happen to you. What kind of person you choose to be. Because here's what I know. The right person attracts the right opportunities. The right person makes the right decisions. The right person gets the right results. Then you tell yourself exactly who that person is. Today I choose to be someone who sees solutions instead of problems. Today I choose to be someone who takes action instead of making excuses. Today I choose to be someone who adds value to every interaction. Today I choose to be someone who expects good things to happen. Notice the language. I choose to be, not I hope to be, or I want to be, or I'll try to be. Choice is power. Choice is commitment. Choice is the language of people who create their reality instead of hoping for it. Next, you remind yourself of your capabilities. Most people start their day by reminding themselves of their limitations. I'm not good at this. I always struggle with that. This is going to be hard. You do the opposite. You remind yourself of your strength, your intelligence, your resourcefulness, your ability to learn and adapt. I am someone who figures things out. I am someone who finds a way. I am someone who gets stronger with every challenge. I am someone who creates value wherever I go. I am someone who attracts the resources I need to succeed. This isn't positive thinking. This is identity programming. You're not trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're reminding yourself of what is true but what you've forgotten, because you've been focused on your limitations instead of your capabilities. Then you set your intention for the day, not your goals. Your intention, goals are what you want to accomplish. Intention is how you want to show up. Today I intend to bring my best energy to every conversation. Today I intend to look for ways to serve others. Today I intend to stay focused on what I can control. Today I intend to end the day knowing I gave my best effort. This entire morning conversation takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes that program your subconscious mind for success. 5 minutes that create momentum for the entire day. 5 minutes that separate you from the 90% of people who start their day by checking what everyone else is doing, instead of deciding who they're going to be. But the morning is just the beginning. Throughout the day, you need emergency protocols for when your old patterns try to resurface, because they will. Your old internal dialogue doesn't disappear overnight. It fights back. It tries to reclaim its territory in your mind. When you catch yourself slipping into old patterns of self-doubt, you have a standard response. That's not who I am anymore. Simple, direct, non-negotiable. You don't argue with the old thought. You don't analyze it. You don't give it energy. You simply redirect. When you face a challenge that triggers your old limiting beliefs, you have a different standard response. This is how I grow. Not why is this happening to me, but this is how I grow. Challenges stop being problems and start being opportunities the moment you change how you talk to yourself about them. When someone treats you poorly or an opportunity doesn't work out the way you expected, your response is, "This is redirecting me to something better." You don't take it personally. You don't create stories about why bad things always happen to you. You trust that everything is working in your favor, even when you can't see how yet. These aren't just phrases. These are power statements that reprogram your automatic responses to life. Most people have automatic responses that create stress, doubt, and limitation. You're installing automatic responses that create confidence, clarity, and possibility. By evening, you need a different kind of conversation with yourself. Not programming for action, but programming for rest and renewal. This is when you process the day, acknowledge your progress, and prepare your subconscious for overnight programming. Start with gratitude, but not the shallow kind. Not "I'm grateful for my coffee this morning," the deep kind. "I'm grateful for my ability to learn from today's challenges. I'm grateful for the people who trusted me with their business. I'm grateful for the strength I showed when things got difficult." Then acknowledge your progress. Most people end their day by cataloging everything they didn't accomplish. You do the opposite. You acknowledge every step forward, no matter how small. Today I chose courage over comfort. Today I took action instead of procrastinating. Today I spoke to myself like someone I believe in. This isn't about being satisfied with mediocrity. This is about recognizing that progress is progress, and progress acknowledged is progress that accelerates. Your subconscious mind learns faster when you acknowledge what it's doing right. Finally, you give your subconscious mind assignments for overnight processing. While I sleep, my mind is working on solutions to tomorrow's challenges. While I rest, my creativity is preparing ideas that will serve me well. While I recover, my intuition is connecting dots that will become clear tomorrow. Your subconscious mind works 24 hours a day. Most people give it random, fearful, limiting assignments by falling asleep to worries and problems. You give it productive, solution-focused, growth-oriented assignments. You use sleep as a time for mental productivity instead of mental chaos. But what happens when life hits you hard? When you lose a job, end a relationship, face a health challenge, or encounter a setback that shakes your confidence. This is when most people abandon their new internal dialogue and return to their old patterns of self-pity and blame. This is when your emergency protocol becomes crucial. When life knocks you down, your first conversation with yourself is not "why me?" It's "how do I use this?" Not "this isn't fair." It's "what is this teaching me?" Not "I can't handle this." It's "I'm stronger than I know." You don't pretend setbacks don't hurt. You don't deny that challenges are difficult. You simply refuse to let temporary circumstances become permanent identity. You speak to yourself like someone who has been knocked down before and gotten back up. You speak to yourself like someone who understands that setbacks are setups for comebacks. The language of resilience sounds like this: "This is temporary. I have survived difficult things before. I am learning something important right now. This experience is preparing me for something better. I choose to grow through this instead of just going through this." Now here's where most people misunderstand manifestation. They think it's about visualizing what they want and waiting for it to appear. Real manifestation is about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts what they want. It's about aligning your internal dialogue with the identity of someone who already has what you're seeking. If you want financial abundance, you start speaking to yourself like someone who is financially intelligent. I make good decisions with money. I attract opportunities to create value. I am always learning how to serve others better. If you want meaningful relationships, you speak to yourself like someone who is worth knowing. I bring positive energy to every interaction. I am genuinely interested in other people. I add value to the lives of others. The fastest way to manifest anything is to become someone who would naturally have that thing. The fastest way to become that someone is to start speaking to yourself like you already are that someone. Not in fantasy, but in preparation. Not in delusion, but in development. Your internal dialogue is either preparing you for the life you want or keeping you stuck in the life you have. Every conversation you have with yourself is either an investment in your future or a mortgage on your potential. Every word you speak to yourself is either building the bridge to your dreams or burning it down. Most people spend more time planning their vacation than they spend planning their internal dialogue. They're more intentional about what they eat for breakfast than they are about what they feed their minds. They're more consistent with their exercise routine than they are with their mental training. But you're different now. You understand that your internal dialogue is the most important conversation in your life. You understand that changing that conversation changes everything else. You understand that success isn't something that happens to you. It's something that happens through you. And it starts with how you talk to yourself. The discipline of daily internal dialogue isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about catching yourself when you slip into old patterns and redirecting yourself back to empowering ones. It's about treating your mind like the powerful tool it is instead of letting it run wild like an untrained animal. Starting tomorrow morning, you have a choice. You can wake up and let your mind wander into worry, doubt, and limitation like most people do. Or you can wake up and take control of the most important conversation in your life. You can start programming yourself for success instead of programming yourself for struggle. The techniques I've shared with you aren't theory. They're practice. They work when you work them. They create results when you create the habit of using them. They transform lives when people commit to transforming their internal dialogue. Your new life starts with your next thought. Your breakthrough begins with your next internal conversation. Your transformation starts the moment you decide to speak to yourself like someone whose dreams matter, whose goals are achievable, and whose success is inevitable. The conversation you have with yourself when you leave here today will either be the beginning of your old life continuing, or the start of your new life beginning. The choice is yours. The power is yours. The conversation starts now.